Great to be with you guys this afternoon. Being in New England, our interest in church building is slightly different. When I come here, it's just amazing the work that's happened in this building. Our building is really quite similar in size and arrangement, but I find myself envious of this church building today. In particular, envious of the size of the bathrooms. Only in New England, but we literally have like these two tiny little bathrooms. And if you're from, those folks from North Carolina, you're like, these bathrooms? But these would be massive by New England size. So I'm having to guard my heart from envy while I'm here this week. A number of years ago, someone, without me knowing it, took my car and drove it away. They drove it away. They also brought it back. They didn't drive my old car away to steal it. They drove it away without me knowing to repair it. I had an old Toyota Camry that I drove that it had a number of issues to it, but in December of that year, the muffler had rusted out and needed to be repaired, and it was going to be a pretty substantial repair cost. Life was busy with it being December, Christmas coming, and honestly, it was an expensive time of year. Didn't really have the money just laying around to make that, and so I was just waiting until after the holidays. It didn't bother me to drive the car around, even though it was honestly pretty loud when I drove it around. To our two, early teen kids, though, it was humiliating to ride in the car. They began to ask me when I drove them to school, "Dad, would you just drop us a few blocks away, and we'll walk the rest of the way so that we don't have to be seen getting out of this car?" We went out of town for the holidays for Christmas, and we came back. I went out to go run an errand in my car. I got in and turned it on and noticed something was different. Was the radio on? Was it off? Why is there a different sound? It was because all of a sudden it didn't make the noise because unbeknownst to me, the muffler had been repaired. Some friends from the church had broken into our house and taken our keys and taken our car, had it repaired, brought it back, so that it was completely fixed by the time I got back. And as I got in, I noticed the sound there, and the console was a little card that said, "Merry Christmas." That's about it. It's a beautiful gift from some friends. But it also was an anonymous gift. They didn't tell us who gave the gift. So our family was blessed. My kids in particular were blessed because now they can ride all the way to school because the muffler wasn't so loud. And so it was a rich thing, and I understand why people sometimes reasonably give anonymous gifts. That's a good thing to do. But in some ways, for our family, the experience felt somewhat incomplete because we wanted to tell someone, "Thank you." But we had no one to tell it to. I had my suspicions who had stolen our car and repaired it. But I couldn't prove it. I didn't have fingerprints, so I didn't know exactly. And so to this day, I still don't know, and I still can't express thanks. To a certain degree, that whole experience feels a little bit like an unclosed loop because we're not able to say to someone, "Thank you. That was a blessing to us." Expressing thanks helps to complete an experience. And God has designed us that way for our good and also for His glory, that we might enjoy His good gifts and respond by thanks to Him and thanks to others who are the means of those gifts for us. If you have your Bible, turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 9 as we continue to plug ahead, and we see kind of a turn in the book from some of what we've seen before that almost sounds surprising in light of some of what we've seen so far in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 9, beginning in verse 7. "Go, eat your bread with joy. Drink your wine with a merry heart. For God has already approved what you do. Let your garments be always white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife from whom you love, all the days of your vain life that He has given you under the sun. Because that is your portion in life, and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. For there's no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going." This afternoon, just one brief emphasis, and that is this. we're to glorify our Creator by enjoying the gifts from Him. Glorify our Creator by enjoying the gifts from Him. We feel in Ecclesiastes the reality of death, the passing nature of life, how so many things in this life that we try to make ultimate are insufficient. In the midst of all this, we have some instructions here now on how we're to live now. And first, we see verse 7, go. He begins by saying, go, to go and take hold of what we have. It's sort of this seek to seize the day. We don't have any idea how many days we have, how many years we'll have, but we're to get up and grab hold of the ones that we do have. Now, we've seen numerous cautions already in Ecclesiastes to call us away from the hurried, frantic life. But here, not in opposition to that, but complementing that, is this picture that there's some things to do in life. There's some things for every single one of us to do in life. So while we must not be frantic, we must not live these hurried lives, we're to go and get up, do something with our days. Then across these verses, we see some of the gifts that God gives to us. Look at verse 7. He says, eat with joy and drink with a merry heart. God created these simple things for us to receive. A simple means of pleasure that God has uniquely created. He intends for us in this life. One of the ways we glorify God is to receive these gifts. And understand they are gifts from God. We're to go and to enjoy them. The most simple meal is a gift from God and can be, in fact, should be received with joy. I wonder, do you think of meals in that way? To enjoy a good cup of coffee. For me, that's Dunkin' Donuts. I don't need these fancy coffee places that so many others. Like, give me a good cup of Dunkin' Donuts. That is something. But do we see that as what a kind gift of God? He could have made us as such where we just had one fluid that we drank to simply satisfy our bodies. He could have created a world like that, but in His kind providence, He's made it so that we can receive things like a cup of coffee, enjoy the taste of it, stay awake in the afternoon, all sorts of good gifts that come from a cup of coffee. Or a meal shared with others, especially shared with those we know. Do we see that as a gift from God? Well, what a kind, honestly, peculiar gift in our world today. In a lonely world that we live in, increasingly so. As people move around, people work remotely. Few people in a city like New Bedford know others. The case in our city. And sometimes we in the church think it's completely normative to have a number of other people we can share a meal with. I wonder how many neighbors around you, around us, don't have anyone to share a meal with. How often do we consider it a joy, a gift, to have people around the table? Not because of what's in the middle of the table, but because of who's around the table and the meal that God has provided. Verse 8, we see the gifts of clothing and health. Verse 8, let your garments be always white, let not oil be lacking on your head. These two are gifts from our faithful God. Verse 9, we see the gift of marriage. For those who are given the gift of marriage, it is also to be received with joy. For most of us, myself included, the gift of marriage isn't always easy. It's not always filled with bliss. But it is a gift that we are to see as such. And when we see our marriage as a gift, it can reshape our view even when, or especially when, marriage is hard. So if you're married, I wondered, when was the last time you thought of your marriage as a gift from God to you? It is such. God's kindness to give us the marriage we have, the person we're committed to. Final gift is work, verse 10. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. That work was created by God in the garden before sin entered the world. So sometimes we get confused and we think of work as a part of the curse. That's not the case. But because of sin, work does become more difficult. Work is often with toil. Work has its thorns. But here we're given a new outlook. Whatever your hand finds to do. So whatever the work is before you. He doesn't say whatever the work that you wish you were doing. What's the work we have today? Not the job or the vocation you desire to have or aspire to have, but what's right in front of us now? Work at this, we're called to do. Whatever your work is, no matter the work, we're told to do it with all of our might. So that we're not to have this life where we only work. When it's time to work, we are to work with all of our might. When our kids were playing sports as younger days, our daughter was the oldest, and our family loves sports. We enjoy playing them together, watching our kids play them. And our expectation of our kids was not that they would be the best player on the team. Had to overcome their dad's genes, so the likelihood of that was not very high, that they would be the best one on the team. But the one thing that we said was the one thing that we must do is hustle. Anyone can hustle. You can play hard, even if you're not good, and you can carve out a place on the team if you're just the kid who hustles. And so the one thing you must do is hustle. Our daughter was the oldest, and she was playing soccer, and you know, times it would be hot or whatever, and she's just not hustling. And it would just eat me up inside. And eventually, I couldn't hold it anymore, and I would call her name, Hannah, hustle! Which she loved, as you can imagine. She really loved when Dad did that. And after I did that a few times, it became clear either by this look she would give me, or I knew what she was thinking. I think, okay, she doesn't love that. That's not great. So we developed our Cook family sign language. So I would say, Hannah, and she would look. I would give her this move. And she knew what it meant. Instead of saying hustle, I was showing her, this is what the Cook family does. We're not the best soccer players, but we will hustle. You must hustle. And so it is for God's people in the world. When we work, we should hustle. Just like when it was time to play the soccer game, it was time to hustle. But hear this, we didn't say before the game or after the game, you have to keep hustling. So it's not 24/7 hustling. It would have looked odd after the game, they shake hands, if our daughter was then just running all over the place. Like, no, during the game, you hustle. The game's over, you don't have to keep hustling. But friends, so it is for God's people when it comes to the work that we have before us. When it's time to work, God's people should be diligent workers. The Apostle Paul helps us, Colossians chapter 3, verse 23 and 24. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. We've seen the caution against the toil of work, the hurried nature of our work, but the alternative is not laziness or inactivity, but is a grace-empowered diligence or hustle in its right context. I mean, I'm convinced that one of the ways today Christians can be a good witness if we were just diligent workers, where our employers would say, I would like to hire more Christians because they're honest and they work hard. But I'm not sure that's always our witness. Now, this list of gifts is not at all intended to be exhaustive, but it's a representative one that the preacher gives us. Here are some of the sorts of gifts that our generous God gives, and we are to receive these gifts and enjoy them. And to not feel guilty enjoying the gifts of God. Now, as we receive these gifts and enjoy them, we must be careful that we don't turn these gifts into something more than what they're intended to be. For so often we turn the gifts into functionally God's. And we ask these gifts to do for us what only God can do. So rather than work having its right place in our lives, work becomes ultimate. Becomes a God. Or marriage, which is a good gift from God, designed by God, but if it becomes ultimate, we crush our marriage and it can't satisfy us? Or does the good gifts of this life, of pleasure and meals, which are a nice thing, but they become ultimate? So we must keep them in their proper place, but see them as good gifts from our God. As already seen, Jesus showed us this as he walked the earth. When you read the gospel accounts, in particular the gospel of Luke, we see Jesus so often sharing community and meals with people. And quite a collection of people. He loved people. People loved him. And he enjoyed sharing a meal with them. He shows us how to enjoy that. So we're to live that way now on the way to a greater banquet that is to come. Right? There's a day coming when we will enjoy a lasting banquet. The perfect banquet in the new heavens and the new earth. So until then, we receive these free gifts. And we live this way in light of the ultimate free gift that Christ has provided. And that's the very nature of what it means to be a Christian. The recipient of the most extravagant gift ever. That is what we are, friends. Not earners, receivers of this gift of salvation. So we should have a unique perspective on receiving and enjoying and giving thanks for our gifts. And so as we think about walking in this pattern, it is to how do we glorify God for the gifts that he gives? How do we embrace those gifts? And a part of that is how do we thank God for those gifts? Well, it is good for us, for our souls, good for others, for us to be a thankful people. To have gratitude be an aspect of who we are. I think our culture understands that impulse. I think it's a God-given impulse. But the problem is our culture doesn't know where to turn for that. Right? Thanksgiving is an incredible holiday in the U.S. And everybody celebrates it. But I'm always curious, like, if you're not a Christian, who do you thank? I don't know if you really ask me. That's an awkward question to ask them. Hey, so who are you thanking? I mean, probably not going to go real well. But it is worth considering. We feel this impulse. I should thank someone for this life that I have, but who are we thanking? And the Christian says, no, we're not thanking the universe. We're not thanking Mother Nature, but there's something more that we are looking to. In fact, someone more that the Christian has. God has created us as such to be a people who know how to receive gifts and express thanks to him, and it is for our good as we thank him. And he, the creator of these gifts, is glorified at the same time. He loves to give us gifts. We respond in gratitude. We make much of him in that. C.S. Lewis says it this way. Gratitude exclaims, very properly, how good of God to give me this. Adoration says, what must be the quality of that being whose far-off and momentary flashes or sparkles are like this? One's mind runs back up the sunbeam to the sun. If I could always be what I aim to be, no pleasure would be too ordinary or too usual for such a reception. From the first taste of the air when I look out the window, one's whole cheek becomes a sort of palate down to one's soft slippers at bedtime. You see, the most simple of gifts is one to express thanks. Enjoy the sunshine, which is no small thing this spring in New England. A sunny day, and to follow the sunbeam back up and say, how good of God to give us a beautiful, sunny spring day. How good of God to provide a simple cup of coffee. How good of God to provide the people around this table. How good of God to give me this job that I am to do now with all my might for this season of my life. A related rhythm to this is how do we also then cultivate, in a God-glorifying way, a thankfulness to others. For so often people are means of gifts to us, and among all people, shouldn't Christians be those who express thanks so freely to others? We might give thanks in small and big ways. One of the ways where I see a lack of gratitude that just irks me in Boston is we have crosswalks everywhere, as like you do here. And you stop all the time for people. It's the law, and so you stop, you let people walk. And in my opinion, what someone should do when you let them walk across, even though you're obligated to do it, Yeah, just a small little, you don't have to like say, thank you, sir, thanks for stopping. They don't have to do that. But just in a simple acknowledgement, even they just like nodded their head, that would be like, you got it. So I've taught my kids, like, we walk across the street, you just kind of wave, and you just do it, because you're saying they're doing what they have to do. There's a rightness to gratitude. And so in so many other areas of life, to express thanks to others. How often in our lives do we go out of our way to thank people who are a blessing to us? Express intentionally. It can feel sort of awkward to say it, but to say thank you for that. Yesterday, our church had a funeral for an elderly woman who'd been a member for 20 years, who'd loved Jesus, loved her church. It was unexpected that when she died, but it was an easy funeral to preach because she loved Jesus, loved her church. She had a broken down body that she no longer has to deal with. But as I was reflecting on it, so many people came to tell of what she had meant to them. In essence, to sort of say thanks to her, but unfortunately she wasn't there, was she? And I was just thinking, we should do a better job of telling people while they're alive how much we appreciate them. How much might she have been helped? Just a few weeks ago, if someone said to her, thank you. Our little church building's like this, except we don't have the elevator, so our nursery's downstairs, these death-defying stairs to make your way down there. But Mamie would come, and she insisted that she would still have the chance to serve the nursery, even though she had no business going down the stairs. But she loved her church. She loved those babies. So she would hike up the stairs into our building and then go down the stairs to the basement to hold babies. And we thanked her, but I don't know that we thanked her as we should have. Saying, maybe what an example you are to the church. What an encouragement you are to me, that you, even though we wish you wouldn't do it, that you want to go down there and love those babies. I could be better, we could be better at expressing thanks to others, but also to God. And friends, the preacher's telling us that's for our good to cultivate that. The bookmark says this under number 4. Worth considering, what are the areas of your life that you did not earn, but God has given to you in his kindness? By setting your mind on these, allow them to lead you into pleasure, cheerfulness of heart, and joy. Share these with the Lord and with someone else. That's worth giving some attention to this week.